moving to the next panel discussion, and I think one of the greatest takeaways from this panel and the one before is learning to talk the game, right? Learning to play the game, learning the investor language. This one is open finance in a cashless society, scaling fintech solutions to mainstream impact. Brought to you by?
By HPS.
All right.
Holy per money, perseverance, and success. Is that what that stands for? No? I'm trying to keep it light. That's why I was brought here. No? Okay. It's brought to you by HPS. This will be moderated by James Barrood, CEO, Innovation Advisor of Tech Council Ventures. Is that you, sir? Come on up here, brother.
No, man, you know, you're going to give the people them some energy. James Barrood, CEO, Innovation Advisor.
Robert Simmons, Global Services Manager, Dentons.
Where is Jesse Owens, the second VP, Open Banking, Wells Fargo.
Is Aldwyn Wayne?
No, I don't see him.
He's not here?
I don't see him.
Okay.
Oh, I see him.
Aldwyn Wayne?
Aldwyn Wayne, founder, CEO, WiPay.
Me no know about league, we name World Cup.
By the way, he has his own intro music.
No for them no like how we hotter than timers. Me see, they don't like when get a youth shell the world up.
Yeah.
Where them a go do ya now?
That's the vibes, that's the vibes.
Do ya now? We still a win. Are we still a win?
Wait, no man, wait.
We still a win.
Last but not least, you have some Spanish music? Because tell him from the name, I could be wrong.
Que él habla español.
¿Hablas español?
Claro que sí.
¿De dónde eres? De Colombia.
Bienvenido.
Ok, like de acá, Maluma, es de Colombia también, tú sabes, ok. Porque la gente estás aquí con el dinero, tú sabes, ok. Bienvenido, David Guerrero. David Guerrero. Un placer, hermano.
Bienvenido. And that is David Guerrero, Principal Architect, Financial Services, Google. Ladies and gentlemen, open finance in a cashless society.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a seat. Okay, we're going to do quick introductions where we are between you and lunch. So we're going to be quick and insightful. And if we have time, we might even take a question or two. But I'm going to just mention one thing real quick. I learned something. Whenever I come here, I learn something about the culture, the history. I was here 3 years ago. I heard Kwame mention Black Star Line, and I didn't know what that was, and I Googled it. So for all of the few people who are out there like me who don't know what that is, it's the shipping line organized by Marcus Garvey, one of the organizers of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. You can Google and learn more yourself. The other thing I just want to mention is Ty mentions that it's so exhausting and tiring for women founders to get money from investors. And that's a big challenge. For decades, forever. And I learned 1 week ago today that we are oblivious, not just about history, but oblivious, and we ask the question differently to women about, you know, their business or their venture. And so we need to be educated. And so I've submitted this speaker, Laura Huang from Harvard, to go speak to the National Venture Association and Angel Association so that we can be aware of our biases and conscious biases of how we ask questions to women founders. So we have to do better too. All right, so I'm not going to do an intro. I'll let these guys do an intro, far more interesting. I'll ask one question, since we spoke about storms and we're going through a storm. What superstorm were you through? I went through Superstorm Sandy in New Jersey and lost power for a week. And the other thing is, what soccer team are you rooting for? I'm not sure. I think Morocco now, but I really want Messi to win. All right, go ahead.
Hi, guys. Good to be here. I think I'm very happy to be on a panel with some esteemed guests as well. Robert Simmons from Dentons Delaney. We're the world's largest law firm and the only global firm in the Caribbean. I cover around 14 jurisdictions. We're present in 12 of them. And believe it or not, we kind of expanded during the pandemic. One of the areas that I kind of focus on, even though with as much legal training as I have, I've kind of just not practiced law, gone into more so looking at regulatory areas, emerging markets. I find that a bit more interesting, and certainly it's a space that, as you'll see from this discussion, is quite exciting. You know, one of the things that I would say that I find quite interesting, especially when I look around this room, is that, and why I like the position I'm in, is that I can help every single firm that's come up on this stage or I've spoken to today. And I think that that's probably one of the most exciting things and interesting things about the portfolio that I actually oversee. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion because there's some interesting points about it that I really want to talk about, for sure.
Storm. Have you been through any natural disasters?
Well, Barbados is very lucky. We happen to be one of those countries that happens to be just outside of the belt. So whenever it's getting close, we never have anything. But I think we had one hurricane last year. It was the first time we got hit since 1976. And it did open the eyes to a number of people when it comes to how do you pay for things when everything is down, right? And I would say that was an eye-opener for me, and I think it will transform into the discussion that we have today as well, too.
Okay, any soccer team you're...
I was really going for Japan.
Really?
Yeah, because I just thought that it was going to be, we had 2 years of COVID, so teams were able to do things in the background. Players went to different places in the world, and they have all now come back together, and I think that's what we're seeing this World Cup.
Right.
So I was really rooting for Japan, and I really haven't looked at it since they've been out.
Thank you. Jesse, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Jesse Owens, VP of our open banking team at Wells Fargo. And just a bit of context as far as kind of what that means, as far as the work that I do every day is to really, one, identify unmet needs and opportunities for our tech enablers. So those are our fintechs. These are enterprises that are building solutions for customers, while also thinking about what are some of those turnkey solutions for our clients that will allow us to meet them at the point of need. So I like to think about the work that I do as a B2B2C type of offering where we build developer tools like APIs, SDKs, webhooks to help with the information reporting, cash management, payments that runs across our rails, while also providing the sexy term that's used today is embedded finance. So how do we meet customers at the point of need with embedded finance experiences and the platforms in which they're doing business? So if you think about there's like this platform or ecosystem where we're serving tech enablers through developer tools, while also conveying our value proposition. I think the theme of this morning was value proposition. We come to our customers with that value proposition of creating embedded experiences where they need it most. So think about cash management, information reporting, payments. That's what we do. And my focus is building out that platform to create those seamless developer integrations and delighting customers at the point of need.
Oh, wait, soccer team?
Oh, yeah, my bad. I haven't really been following World Cup, honestly. I know. Don't, not today, but I will say, Ghana. No, but I am an avid Premier League follower, so my team is Arsenal, but I know that not really relevant for the question.
All right. Go, Aldwyn, go ahead.
So my name is Owen Wayne. I'm the founder and CEO of WiPay. WiPay is the Caribbean's, English-speaking Caribbean only payment facilitator. If you know what that means, it's PayPal and Stripe. And those are payment facilitators as well. But we're registered to provide that service in Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia, and so forth. What we do as the team and as the title says is enable digital payments via APIs, via webhooks, so you could build your own product on top of it. So you use international services like Stripe and PayPal to build your own product. But those things are not available to us in the Caribbean until we created WiPay. And now we see within the last 2 years, exponential growth in terms of online businesses, because now you can get paid in the Caribbean. WiPay, settles money into every Caribbean bank account. And we recently just launched our own MasterCard that allows you to settle money directly to a card if you don't have a bank account. Hoy, are you there? We also have a Visa card in Trinidad that allows you to do the same. So, we like to think of ourselves as an enablement company, right? So payments is always there, but how do you make it easier to allow everyone to accept and make payments in the Caribbean, and that's what WiPay is. On top of WiPay, we recently launched a bank with Orville Burrell, Shaggy, in the U.S. That provides the diaspora population in the U.S. access to a bank account without needing to have a social. So you have a TRN, and in Miami, you have a bank account, right? So we just launched that this year. We partnered with the NSA to provide this value throughout all 50 states, through a partnership with the NSA. So we see ourselves as an enablement company that allows, companies like everyone who's here to build awesome products using a platform that's available for payments in the Caribbean.
Sakardine.
Trinidad and Tobago. But we never even qualify out of Caribbean CONCACAF, so we lost.
All right.
We lost since 2021 during qualifying stage. So.
Fair enough. David, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Guerrero. I like to define myself as a Colombian who, through a lot of curiosity, a lot of hard work, and a healthy disregard for the impossible, ended up in a global company trying to solve some of the toughest problems out there. So what I focus on is financial services industry, the capital markets, and the questions we're trying to solve right now within Google and through the partnerships of startups and big firms like Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, all of the German exchanges, all of the American exchanges, and so on, is what is the capital markets industry? What is the wealth management industry? What is just financial services going to look like 30 years from now? And we give ourselves such a big distance into the future, because if we can all guess what's going to happen in the next year, we can all guess what's going to happen in the next 3 years. It's almost impossible to start putting the building blocks together for what's going to happen in 30. But that's the exciting part of it, and that's where you have those stretch goals that are going to really require the ecosystem. That is not going to be a single company doing it. That is not going to be a single Google giant G behind it all. It's going to be an ecosystem of players, so from the startups to the governments to people themselves and what users are going to demand from us by then. And again, very excited to be here. I'm really happy with all of the panels that have happened today. In fact, I feel like we started our panel in the previous one because the topic came up already. Finally, sadly, Colombia didn't make it to the World Cup. So I'm just hoping for good football. And if we can get a Portugal-Argentina final, that's going to be fun.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Great panel. A lot of stuff to cover in only 16 minutes. So is cashless society achievable in the Caribbean? I know you're going to say yes, Aldwyn. So why don't you kick it off?
For sure. So I'll start off by just pointing out Africa. So I was in Ghana a couple of weeks ago where probably about 70% of the society there exists for payments on their mobile device, whether it's MTN, Vodafone, and they had nothing. So they leapfrogged the need for the traditional banking rails, the Visa, the MasterCards. When the cell phone and digital payments came out via mobile devices, they went from straight cash straight onto the mobile device. So although in the West we have Visa, MasterCard, those traditional rails that we need to overcome, if you look at Africa, you see it as something that's very possible. You see they use their mobile device 90% of the time for payments. So in the Caribbean, I think it's a bit similar. We do have, a high bank population, considering, what's going on in the rest of the world. But the opportunity that's there for us is to leapfrog, using some of those rails, right? Because those networks, Visa and MasterCard, are now embedding their services within mobile applications. So instead of you now having to go get a bank account, you could get a Visa card through Color Bank, right? You could get it in an app, all right? So I do see the Caribbean as, following in the footsteps of what's taking place in Africa, where we provide a product that meets, the individuals at their point of need. We launched this thing in Mobay where you could receive an American Express payment through your phone. And they pick it up because, tourists comes into Mobay, they have an American Express. Most of the banks don't accept American Express. And you can now tap your American Express card on your phone to receive a payment, and we give you a card that you can go to an ATM and withdraw the cash. That's how I believe we would achieve, a cashless society in the Caribbean, by providing solutions that meet individuals at their point of need. And it's available, and it's there. So yes, I do see that as a possibility.
Okay, Robert, you want to take it up?
Yeah, I think one of the key things there in terms of finding the solution, though, and I think it was from the panel just before, I'm a very big proponent on cultural economics. And I think to any client that comes before us and they are looking to do business in the region, I always ask them, do you know your client? Have you spoken to your regulator? And I think when you do those things, you can then answer the question that you've just asked, Yes, and I think the answer is yes to that. But you need to know what will your customer use your product for? Who is your customer? How often are they going to use that product? I go back to your initial point about the storms and hurricanes. You got a lot of people in the Caribbean who would never use an app for payment until it came a situation where they couldn't get to the ATM. The same thing for COVID. So you have to sit down and speak to your potential client. And when we look at open finance, the aggregation of data, you get to understand your client. You get to understand the environment you intend to put your product in. And then you can answer your own question and say, yes, we can create a cashless society. And how scalable it can be, that also goes into the same aspect of understanding the cultural environment you're working in. And I think yeah, so that kind of gives me the confidence of saying yes.
So, David, how does Google view this geography and Google Wallet?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. So, I want to start with maybe connecting a few of the dots of the day. Like we talked about gold, we talked about cash, and we are talking about as startups looking for investment. What is the value of replacing cash in this society? And we need to start splitting it into different buckets. Like, why do we want a cashless society at a governmental level? You know what? It influences the economy. The more, it means there's less friction in transactions. Customers are going to go buy from businesses. Businesses are going to go buy from businesses. People are going to be transacting amongst themselves. The user journey or the life of a, let's call it back in the day, of a dollar bill, going from hand to hand, is creating value each hand it touches. The same thing is going to happen with transactions that are cashless. And that's where wallet comes in. Wallet is by default on your phone. You can go and start spending every second if you want, 10 coffees per day, buy a house out of it, a car, whatever the imagination is limitless. So we are bringing value at a governmental level, at a Caribbean level, through that. Like, we are able to actually generate momentum in the economy through it. But then that's one perspective. Like, we need to go into the second perspective, which is like, what are institutions, banks, and actually companies getting out of it? Banks and companies, hey, more transactions, great, more fees, great, cash dollar signs in everyone's eyes, fantastic. Now, let's really take into account what we cared about. We work for big companies, but we also are human beings. How does that make my life easier? Mm-hmm. So I've moved in my life around 4 different times, and I call them big moves, 4 different continents. And every single time trying to create a credit score, no matter where, it's impossible. trying to move some starting money into so I can pay the deposit on a rent and then my next big city. Almost impossible. Here comes a wallet where I have to do nothing. And it's well trusted by a great institution like Google, backed by great financial institutions out there. And I'm able to go and tap and be able to start a new life, be able to consume new services, be able to adapt much faster. Now, let's bring it down into the Caribbean. You guys are so great because you are an agglomeration of different nations, cultures, races, behaviors, and traditions. And all of a sudden, you're breaking boundaries with just an app on your phone, powered by the infrastructure, powered by all of these great leaders that are just thinking how to make life much easier across the whole board, across all of the value chain. So you're not only taking care of the people at the institution, the government, and the individual level. Now, I did want to add one more point, which is going back to that first question, is it possible to have a cashless? 0% of usage of cash out there. Most people will say no. As I told you, very healthy disregard for the impossible. I think this is where we go back to the opportunity. There are incredibly hard problems to solve to get there, but it means that there are incredible opportunities to solve from a human point of view, from a business point of view. Like if we need to think about social benefits, the bankless out there are going to be having a hard time paying cashless if they don't have a bank account to get money from. If they don't have an address, homelessness becomes a very big issue for the dissolution of cash. So are those people also caring about getting rid of cash? How are their lives becoming more and more interesting, much easier, and maybe resolving some of the social problems along the way? And those are the opportunities we also need to be thinking about. Because it's easier to focus on the 90% of, cashing, but we also need to be thinking, what is the opportunity on this last 10%?
That's a really good point. Jesse, did you want to comment on some of the trends you're seeing in the region and toward this future?
Yeah, I'll just be quick because I know we're limited on time. What I will say is that I think across the board, I think you can survey everyone in this room and we can all agree that we want faster, seamless, more transparent ways to move money. However, whether one reason or another, a product, a system has failed them. And so they default to what they're accustomed to doing. And so I see cash as a stopgap for either processes, products, or platforms that has failed consumers, such that now they're defaulting to what makes sense or what's easier for them. But I think at the end of the day, I think we can all argue that they want faster ways to pay, they want more security, they want more transparency. And then from a fintech enterprise provider standpoint, having that data can now unlock new insights, new product offerings that same consumer that found it hard to get online will now found value because now you see the platform kind of pouring back into them versus having to constantly be disappointed. So I think that the conversation around cash versus cashless just requires some context. And back to what my brother was saying is around how do we understanding the customer and really meeting them at the point of need and just understanding those nuances.
Got it, thanks. So I know there's a bunch of entrepreneurs out there, and earlier today we learned that fintech was one of the growth areas in the Caribbean. So for those entrepreneurs out there, or nascent entrepreneurs who are willing or interested in the fintech space, what guidance can you give them as they think about their next steps? I'm going to start with Aldwyn, since I think he has a lot to say about this.
So, guidance. What I would say in the Caribbean, and as my lawyer friend just mentioned, is in the fintech space, it's a highly regulated space. So understand what it takes to operate whatever product you're thinking about. Every market that we enter, we start with the regulators first, right? And I know this is not the sexy topic, but, that's the key to actually having a product. The idea, everyone has the idea. Everyone has, the ability to think of something that would provide value. But if you're an entrepreneur, you got to understand the space that you operate within and understand who allows you to operate. So in the fintech space, start with the regulators, have that conversation, build your product based around what they're going to allow you to do. Like in Jamaica, we have like 15 products, but we only have one in market because that's what the regulator is happy with, right? And we're working with them to get other products in market. So once you understand how that market is regulated, whatever country you're from, I think that's where you need to start, and that's where success comes from. Understanding how to play by the rules that govern, that space that you're in. Again, I know it's not a sexy topic. You want to hear, build something awesome, they're going to jump on it, you're going to make a lot of money. But it doesn't happen that way. You got to build something that makes a regulatory sense so that while you grow, you have the blessings of the people that govern that space. So in the fintech world, it's not like, the video games or marketing or merchandise. It's money, right? We manage billions of dollars in the Caribbean, and with a B. And the only way we get to do that is because we sit and have conversations with regulators from Trinidad, Suriname, Guyana, Jamaica, So that's my 2 cents. They'll talk about the sexy stuff, but in the reality, you really, really need to have the regulators on your side in the fintech space before you actually put a product in market.
And so just so we can sort of make that tactical, what would be the next step for someone? Should they start or join an organization, lobby, have one-on-one conversations? What would be the...
So the funny thing is, I remember when we started WiPay in 2017, we had to write a letter to get a meeting, and it would be 2 months down the road. Now, because I know we've been pushing, you call the regulator and they're like, oh yeah, let's meet. I was in Barbados a couple of weeks ago, and one of the meet-up requests was BOJ, oh, we need to talk to you about a product that you're coming out. So they're very interested in providing or enabling the space to grow. You just have to make sure you understand that that's a necessary part of your business. So in the fintech space, I would always say right now, make sure you understand what regulations you need to have to operate your product and have that conversation. They would answer you. You send an email to any governor, any central bank head of payments, they would answer because they understand it's a very competitive space right now.
And maybe the TBR Connect platform could help facilitate that. So that would be really good.
I'm sorry, yes.
Benefit.
Could facilitate that. Can Kyle.
David, did you want to mention from Google's perspective? I know there's programs that help entrepreneurs, and you've seen a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many programs, not only to get start funding for infrastructure. Like you have cloud now, you get programs for X amount of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to just get started during those first month of POC, pilot design. But take it one step further. Don't only think about the money, think about the coaching. There's just as many programs of going and grabbing someone who has experience, who has gone through the battle with a regulator. Like, trust me, there are people out there who have had to redefine a global business, and they are ready to answer a few questions. They'll even pay for your lunch if you ask them nicely. So it's really, really important for you to think about how the network is going to be helping you. Again, TBR, a great platform to start getting that. Like every time someone asks me a question, it's like, hey, what's happening with this in the industry? happy to have a chat. So don't be afraid of reaching out. Don't be afraid, and I'm sure everyone that has been on a panel here today and will be in a panel today will probably answer that email, that text, that ping whenever they have time, and we'll be more than happy to connect and give you some feedback, some coaching. And so that would be my first advice. The second one would be think of the ecosystem. And I'll give you maybe a little bit of what we do at Google, which is we think about user journeys. And when you think about a journey, your user wakes up in the morning and it's going to interact. If you think it's going to interact with you, only with you, you're a little diluted as a startup leader or as a technologist or as anything else. They're going to interact with 1,000 things during the day. Think about where your app, think about where your business interacts with that user throughout their day, and you first will start seeing the gaps or where you can start playing or growing your business towards. And the second is you're going to not waste time, because there are solutions out there that a lot of players are putting out that you can easily integrate with, and that can accelerate your time to market so much, instead of being a heavy-hearted or a hard-headed engineer that really wants to build it all from scratch. So
That's a great way to end. User journeys, product market fit, right? And networking, getting guidance from really smart entrepreneurs who have been through this before. So I'm going to end with that. Thanks to this distinguished panel. Thanks to our hosts. And look forward to catching up over lunch.
I just want to end with one last point. Test it before you build it. I can't say that enough, because in fintech, there's this openness, or at least there's this opportunity to create these innovative financial solutions, but without adequately testing those concepts, prototyping, low fidelity, high fidelity prototypes, before you actually write a single line of code, that will position yourself in a much favorable light in front of regulators, as well as understanding the feasibility of building the actual product itself with just lightweight ways of testing those concepts. It's much easier to iterate over a clickable prototype versus an app that you invested weeks, months, years building to just find out that you can't take it to market. Just wanted to share that.
Just got one quick point, and it's very important for everyone in this room who's looking to do something in the region. Caribbean time is not a myth, it's a reality. And it's not necessarily for people just sitting on their hands or laurels or whatever, but the Caribbean is one of the most regulated regions in the world. It's a region in which if something happens in Jamaica, is deemed as the Caribbean that has done something wrong. So when regulators are extra skeptical about your product, it's because they understand the gravity of what it means, not just for the country, but for the region. And in addition to that, I would say is that the one thing any advice I'd give to any of fintech in the room is that, especially when you're dealing with open finance and getting data from people, and you're asking about trends, is this emerging trend of very detailed data protection legislation, which is now making fintech companies having to create compliance departments just as big as engineering departments and coding departments. And I think that's something that I think when you're approaching jurisdictions to do business with new products, to keep that in mind. It's not the pace, it's not necessarily due to them, having an aversion to technology only in itself, but understanding that this needs to be right. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with people's data, information, and it's not just about the money transfer. Just want to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Aldwyn, do you want real quick? But I'm in trouble anyway.
I'm hungry.
So. We're good?
So, okay.